The reason that I wanted to learn from somebody who was an expert is because I had no idea, but my life was at stake. So I've done things and sought out coaching and sought out expertise and modeled successful people in my business and in volleyball and other things that I've done and been good at. But I would never think to ride a motorcycle without getting some real training. So let's recap mastering exercise 1 and exercise 2. First of all, I'm an apprentice, I guess, for Robert Simmons, who's our Be the Boss of Your Motorcycle coach. So everything I know, everything I teach about slow speed riding comes from Robert Simmons and his YouTube channel called Be the Boss of Your Motorcycle. Now, I fell in love with that channel because I wanted to be the boss of my motorcycle. I wanted to really have control of it because this big, giant, heavy beast was something that I feared for 60 years. So I wanted to know that if I was going to get on this thing and I was going to risk my life being on this big, bad machine, that I could control it. So just the name of the YouTube channel had me intrigued enough to say, hey, you know what? I want to be the boss of my motorcycle. I just so want to be the boss of my motorcycle. I don't want my motorcycle telling me what to do or telling me when to stop. I want to be able to tell my motorcycle when to stop. And I want to tell my motorcycle what to do. So I invested my time and energy learning the 9 steps that he teaches on his channel. So everything that I teach on my channel is from Robert Simmons. And I would suggest that you subscribe to his channel, become a VIP preloader, get into the practice sessions, and actually go up to Pooler if you can, and participate with him in these practice sessions. I have aspired to do that, and I have been in several of the practice sessions at Pooler and in Tampa. And I just can't tell you enough what you'll get out of the practice sessions when you go and actually get instruction from Robert personally. But what do you do when you are done practicing with Robert and you know everything you need to work on? You practice. So that's what I did. I actually started practicing before I even went up to Pooler and met Robert because I wanted to be able to do the exercises at least proficiently and get some more coaching. So when you practice at home, you can set up the same course he does, and I suggest you start with exercise 1 and exercise 2. I'm not replicating Robert's channel, obviously. I am not in a position to replicate Robert's channel. What I'm doing is I'm giving the perspective of that brand new rider, taking on the lessons and the expertise of Robert and employing it so that it can make your ride more, and sharing that experience with you as the apprentice of the expert. And I am sharing my experience of how did I get to the point where I was fearless on my motorcycle and super confident, and I'm able to do drills that most experienced riders won't even attempt. So believe it or not, exercise 1 and exercise 2 is a skill that most experienced riders will not even attempt to do. And as a new rider, if you master these skills, you're going to be head and shoulders more confident and fearless motorcycling than some of the most experienced riders. Let's answer some questions from our community regarding these exercises. Exercises 1 and 2. These are the fundamental steps that you want to learn when you're first learning to ride a motorcycle. And if you've been riding a motorcycle for years and you haven't mastered these 2 steps, I would suggest or encourage you to maybe try them, because it's going to enhance your riding experience a millionfold. I can't implore you enough to learn these skills and master them, because it's gonna really enhance your riding experience. So let's get into it. The first question: what are the steps I'm talking about of starting and stopping the bike? Okay, so the steps that he goes over in starting your bike or stopping your bike. So starting your bike, we have 5 steps. The first step is to make sure you're in first gear. The second step is to cover the rear brake. That means rest your foot on the rear brake. Don't engage it, but just rest it there. The third step, we're making a box. So first step, second step, third step, fourth step, okay? So, and then fifth step is bring your foot up. So like, we're gonna talk about first step, first corner of the box, the lower left-hand corner of the box is to put the bike in first gear. The second step is the lower right-hand box of the square, and that is to cover the rear brake. The third step is the upper right corner of the box, and that is to bring your throttle into the preload position, which is 2,000 RPMs. So once you've got your bike into 2,000 RPMs, you're gonna come over to the fourth step in the box, which is the upper left, and that is to put your clutch into the friction point, which means you're gonna put the clutch into the bite. And the bite is right where it grabs. Don't go out further than that, just right where it grabs and starts to move the bike forward. And you can actually feel the tension, right, of that friction point, right as it grabs, okay? So in the clutch, we're talking about 0 is right before the grab, 1 is at the grab, and 2 is just beyond the grab, not all the way out. So just so you kind of know what I'm talking about with the clutch, they're micro moves. And then the fifth step in starting your bike smoothly is to, as the bike starts to engage and move forward, you're gonna pick up your left foot and put it on the board. You're not gonna drag it. You're not gonna run with 2 feet because your other foot's on the brake, right? So you're covering the rear brake with your right foot. So there's no moving the bike along with your feet. You're gonna put the bike into the preload position, the throttle, and you're gonna let the clutch grab at number 1, right at the friction point. And then as the bike starts to move, you can even bring it to 2 and then back to 1. And you're gonna pick up your foot and put it on the board. You're gonna be amazed. An exercise that you can do to learn how all that works is to just play with the throttle and the clutch. So you've got both feet on the ground, and you're just going to bring the throttle up to 2,000, and you're gonna move that clutch from 0 to 1, 0 to 1, 0 to 1, 0 to 1, really smoothly, so you can feel the bike move forward a little bit, the tire will start to roll a little bit, and then you bring it back to 0 and it'll stop. And bring it to 0 and the bike will start to move, and then bring it back. So that's how you can get really acclimated to that clutch control. I would practice that a lot until you felt comfortable with, I know where my bite is on my clutch. All right, so everybody's clutch is kind of different. So you just want to make sure that you know where the bite is on your clutch, and that your throttle is at 2,000 RPMs, and you're working with going from 0 to 1, 0 to 1, 0 to 1, not taking off, just 0 to 1, 0 to 1, so you can feel the bike move forward and back, forward and back, forward and back, so that you can get comfortable with what's my hand supposed to be doing. And then we're gonna do all 5 steps. So we're gonna be in first gear. Everything is first gear. Always check it first. Just put your foot up, make sure you're in first gear. Cover the rear brake, 2,000 RPMs, and then get your friction point into number 1. As you put it into number 1, you're going to lift your foot, your left foot, onto the board, and you're going to start to go. Now you're not going to let the clutch out past 2. So you're going to go between 2 and 1, 2 and 1, 2 and 1, 2 and 1. That's all you're going to do. You're going to drag the rear brake so you can keep yourself going slow. As long as you don't let that throttle go down, okay, you will stay up. So it's just a miracle how it works. It's not miracle, it's physics, but it works. So you just want to know that physics actually works, and 2,000 RPMs is going to keep your sufficient power to the rear wheel, and the clutch is how much power you give it. Okay, so as soon as the clutch starts to engage, your RPMs are going to drop a little. That's why they need to be up so high. And just get used to hearing that. Used to hearing that throttle be high. And after a while, you're just going to think, oh, that's normal. My throttle is where it's supposed to be. It's not abnormal for your throttle to be high at slow speeds. Okay, so that's what's going to keep your bike up. So you want it to be higher than lower. Okay, so the higher the throttle, and then put your clutch into position 1, and the bike's going to start to move forward. You can put it in 2 and then back to 1 as you get going, and keep it between 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, just so you can get a feel for how the bike moving slowly forward. That's going to take a while. Okay, don't think that these exercises are like one and done. These things take lots of time to practice and master. So give yourself the time to get really good at handling your clutch. You get good clutch control, and the rest of learning how to ride a bike is so much better. It's so much more, it's all the fulfillment without the anxiety. And that's really what we want. We love riding, the freedom of riding a motorcycle, but we have anxiety. We get scared. So that's why I have this channel. It's called Fearless Motorcycling. So that's what we're going to learn on this channel. Okay, that's a lot for question number 1. Question number 2. What is preload? The amount of RPMs. I already talked about that. Preload at the number of RPMs, 1,000 RPMs. So keep it right about there. It might seem a little high, but as you engage the clutch, it's going to go down. So you want it to be a little bit higher than not high enough. Okay, there should be no putt, 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 putt. If you notice on my videos of when I was first learning to ride, my motorcycle was going putt, 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 putt. Okay, my preload wasn't there. I didn't even know anything about preload. I was just trying to do the drills that the MSF instructor was showing me to do. They don't teach you preload in MSF course. They don't teach you cover the rear brake in MSF course. They don't teach you the friction point and staying in the friction point. So these things here are these are what motorcycle police officer motorcyclists, so really skilled motorcyclists. So when I got started riding a motorcycle, I didn't want anything to do with learning by myself. I wanted to find, and I can say that the reason that I wanted to learn from somebody who was an expert is because I had no idea, but my life was at stake. So I've done things and sought out coaching and sought out expertise and modeled successful people in my business and in volleyball and other things that I've done and been good at. But I would never think to ride a motorcycle without getting some real training, okay? The MSF course just wasn't enough for me. I needed to drill, and I needed to not drill bad habits, okay? So I wanted to learn from somebody that I could model their skill set and practice it, and then I could replicate their skill level. So that's why I started to study Robert's channel. So next one. Okay, why won't the bike fall? The bike won't fall because it's a gyroscope, all right? And if you've studied anything about physics, you know that a gyroscope spins.
The spinning wheel prefers to stay oriented as it is, and it resists any attempt to change that orientation.
So if you keep power to the rear wheel, and it's not just power, it's sufficient power to the rear wheel. So that means if you take the power away and the bike is tipping a lot, you need more power to bring that bike up to upright position than you would if it's just slightly tipping and a little like wobble. Only needs a little bit of power to bring it into the upright position. So that's what we mean by sufficient power will keep the bike upright and keep it from falling over. Why cover the rear brake? Okay, why cover the rear brake? We're covering the rear brake so we won't stab at it when we need to slow down. So a lot of times, okay, you pull out into an intersection and then the cars all stop in front of you, and say you're taking a left-hand turn and you're pulling out from the light from a stop, and everybody starts to stop and you're in the midst of your left-hand turn. Well, if you cover the rear brake, then you can straighten the front wheel and you can come to a smooth stop, okay? But if you stab at it and your foot's not covering the rear brake, you can punch at it and then you can knock your bike over, okay? So again, you wanna make sure that everything is controlled and graceful and smooth. So we cover the rear brake so that we can drag on it and slow the bike down or correct our speed a little bit as we do maneuvers at slow speeds. You use the rear brake at 8 miles an hour and lower. You use the front brake and the rear brake if you're over 8 miles an hour. So if you're going fast, say you're going 40 miles an hour and you're gonna, stop or slow down, you use the front and the rear brake, okay? That will give you 100% of your stopping power. If you don't use your rear brake, you're using the front brake, and that's 70% of the stopping power. So you don't wanna use the rear brake only when you're going super fast, and you don't want to use the front brake only when you're going super fast if you really need to stop. You use both brakes. But as you get under 8 miles an hour, you can take your hand off the front brake and just keep your rear brake covered and slow down to in that stopping position by bringing the clutch back into position 1, staying in the friction zone, keeping your throttle at 2,000 RPMs, and then pressing the rear brake gently until the bike slows enough where you can pull the clutch in. And then after you put your foot down, you take the RPMs down, okay? So that's how you stop smoothly. The cones are 15 feet apart. So in exercise 1, when we're going to the smooth start and then a smooth stop, and if they're little short stops, those are 15 feet apart, those cones, and you want your front tire of your bike to be equal to the cone. So you don't want to pass the cone so that you're in the middle of the bike is at the cone. You want to really learn where that front tire is. So that's another important thing to pay attention to, is that your front tire, you're going to learn by doing exercise 1 where that front tire is, because position and placement of the tire in some of these other drills is important. So if you get familiar with where your front tire is on your motorcycle by stopping at the first cone, it's going to help you in the rest of the exercises. The rear brake is for correction and control, as I spoke of. Correction to slow down a little bit when you're in a maneuver, and control, right? So it'll give you the ability to drag on it while you're in the maneuver to slow yourself down enough to do the maneuver but not stop. Because if you take away too much speed from some of these maneuvers, that's when you can't lean. So we're going to learn that control and the correction with the rear brake in exercises 1 and 2 so that we can use them in later exercises as we progress. But you're leaning, you need certain amount of speed in order to lean the bike. So we want to always be able to add correction and control with the rear brake. So that's all the questions that I have right now. I just wanted to recap this first segment, and I'll be doing more segments in the future. So we're going to be doing exercise 3, which is trust and believe, exercise 4, which is the 90-degree left turns and right turns using the slow speed. So you're going to learn that just exercise 2, slow ride, you can literally turn the wheel while you're in the slow ride and do a 90-degree turn. So, those are things that are coming. I'm going to drill into the drills. So my channel is really about drilling into the drills from the new person's perspective to give you a little bit extra of tips and tricks and details on what exactly you're practicing when you're practicing at home for eventually going up to Pooler or practicing in one of Robert's sessions where he does them all over the world now. But we want you to be able to have enough information and enough encouragement and enough people to share with that are new too. Like I'm new, I'm only a year into this, to have a community of people who take the exercises and actually integrate them. So you can go to Robert's sessions and you can practice with him, and then you learn where your proficiency needs help, like where you're less proficient or need more work in certain areas. Well, you go back home and we want to make sure that you're doing the practicing, that you're practicing, and there's so many exciting benefits of practicing. Sometimes you just don't know where to go, right? You don't have a place to ride to, or it's just, what are we going to do today? Where are we going to go today? But you could practice any day. Once you start to feel that the bike gets picked up with the clutch opening, you're going to feel infinitely better about your control of the bike. And then we can get into additional exercises. But mastered exercise 1, master exercise 2, put in the comments that you've done it. Even send me a message. You can send me a video. You can just let me know that you're working on these skills. And then we'll meet again and we'll talk about exercise 3. And then we'll talk about exercise 4. If you like the content and you're getting some value out of some of these lessons, and you're excited to practice and excited to go on big trips because you have skills and you're not afraid, then we want you to join our community and have some fun with us at Fearless Motorcycling with Lori. We're going to help you practice with purpose so you can ride with confidence. Talk soon.